December 30th, and we're getting ready to have Old Crow's New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve shows at the Ryman. And I get that call, and I was like, I'm getting ready. I'm packing my stuff up for the Ryman. I'm like, I don't have time for jokes. So I go to Ryman, play the show. I get a call again the next day. And it was like, hey, we just, so I answered it this time. I was like, just wanted to, make sure you got the call and the message yesterday and like see if you'd be interested in joining Bob Dylan's band in 2023, going out on tour. And I was like, for real? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'm clearly interested. He was like, great. That's all I need to know. He was like, just wait for further instructions. Don't mention this to anybody.
There has got to be more than this.
Jerry Pentecost, my dude, thank you so much for making a little time for it.
Thanks for having me.
I thought maybe we could. I have a vision for this conversation, okay, but it's subject to change. But I thought I could start things off with, like a recap of, as best I can remember, where our friendship, colleagueship, and on my part, fandom began, which is, I think the first time I saw you play was at the Country Music Hall of Fame. You had put together this, this, not a tribute, but it was like,
was that the Spotlight series?
Maybe so, like like modern folkies play cover country classics. Huh. Like I just remember, it was the first time I ever saw Joshua Headley play, and I think that you curated that show, but you were drumming for it for sure. And then, of course, you were in Morse Code, the pilot, playing yourself, reprising your role on stage at Roberts, which I think is a part of the bio in there somewhere.
Yeah, fairly normal life, real life for me.
Yeah, real life experience. A Tuesday, say. And then most recently, just like last week, at the Steve Cropper tribute at the Vinyl Tap here in East Nashville. And so I'm glad that we put this together finally. And I think that your story is unique in that you, grew up in the Nashville area and also seem determined to be a comping, nay, touring, supportive drummer. And that's maybe where I'm going to start this conversation with a question, which is that accurate? Do you feel like you're destined to be a road player because you played with so many luminary acts, or is there a point at which you think the studio mainstay will be your calling?
Well, before I answer that, let me just start with my recollection is us being a part of the greatest band that ever existed, performing at Roberts on your pilot. So that's my recollection of us meeting. But no, we'd known each other before that. But that's the way I like to look at it: the greatest band that ever lived. But no, so. Being born and raised from Nashville, coming from a low-income family, we never traveled. We didn't take holidays. We didn't do any of that. Traveling was my stepdad dropping us off in Alabama to visit his in-laws, like for the summer. So outside of Alabama and one spring trip with a best friend to Panama City Beach, like I'd never been to any other state, city, anything. It was just dirt roads, Alabama, and Panama City. So I knew I wanted to travel. I knew I loved the idea of it. And when I found out that touring was a way to do that, so like when bands were like, we go on tour, like there were two bulbs that were like going off in my head. I was like, tour is equated to success, like you can't be successful if you don't tour, if you don't go out and share your music, your gift, whatever, you want to call it with the world. And then also you get to travel for free. And like, before I get too carried away, it's really not free. But at 17, when I started traveling, it did seem like it was free. Because if you think about it, when you're 17, you have very few belongings. So you're like, I didn't really pay for much. I don't own anything. I can just get up and leave whenever I want to. So if you live on your own. And so, so like that's kind of where, and at some point I really, like my goals transition, like where I'm like, man, I want to play on, like something that gets nominated for a Grammy, or, you know, like I want to, you know, like I want it to be more about the experience that I create one night. Like I want this lifelong sustainability. And then, you know, like as I'm getting more and more serious about playing drums, you know, you start hearing the names like John Bonham and Steve Gadd and Tony Williams and Al Jackson Jr. Like those are, you know, like probably my top 4. And I'm just going to throw Bernard Purdie in there because if we're talking about recording that, so those are my 5 folks. And so as I started to hear their name more and more, you start really noticing that their legacy becomes more about the recordings that they left behind, not so much the, you know, like it's not like Grateful Dead where people are like, dude, that show 77 in Philadelphia, you know, like it becomes more about check out this record. What about this Steely Dan album? Like, do you hear what Asia, you know, Steve Gadd, like arguably one of the best recorded drum solos of all time. So in the back of my mind, there's definitely an exit strategy, and I just take the work that's given to me. I mean, I think that's at this point in life, that's all you can do is if you're given a plate, you know, you just do the best you can with it. Sometimes you don't like the food that's on there, but you still got to eat. So
is there has touring, do you have the same zeal for it as you did before? Does it still feel like free travel, even with a family at home? And
well, that's where I was getting at. It's definitely not free because now it's more complicated for me to go on the road. You know, like I have a wife and 2 kids now. Like I have a mortgage. You know, like I have to pay for health insurance. You know, there's a lot of elements that come with it. But do I still? I'm not a spring chicken. Obviously, not anymore. You see the gray in the beard.
You look pretty. Yes.
But I, you know,
so many wrinkles in that
I
face,
do okay.
So.
I take care of myself. I have I was going to say I have a skincare routine. I don't. But when you're playing in a good band, you're playing good music every night, and the hang is good, you can tour for forever. Yeah. It's like, it's crazy to think about it. Like sometimes I go out on tour and I'm gone for a month and it feels like a week. And then sometimes I'm gone for 2 days and it feels like a month. And it just really depends because you're on stage, the excitement's there, the hang is there, the vibe is there, everything's good. And as soon as I get off stage, depending on what time it is, have I said goodnight to the kids, you know, like have I checked in with my wife, you know, like all the other particulars. Then, you know, like that's where you're like in your bunk scrolling what we were talking about earlier, looking for that cute video of, you know, like so-and-so just to give you a little lift because you missed bedtime, you know, you miss reading those books, or, you know, like when I'm at home, I do all the pickups and the drop-offs, I make the lunches, you know, like I do a lot of stuff to, you know, try to pull my weight and support, because I know it's not easy when I'm gone. So like those little, so it, you know, like you have both sides. A friend of mine was just texting me and he was, you know, I was out this past weekend with Soul Asylum doing our last shows of the year. And he had tagged me in a story and I was like, man, sorry. Like I missed the story. You know, like when I get off the plane, like I go straight back into dad mode until, you know, like I have more gigs. And he was like, from rock star to making lunches. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's essentially what it is, except I don't consider myself a rock star. I'm just a dude in the background. So,
dude, that sounds like the dream, man. Yeah. The best of all worlds.
You know, there's a lot of work and there's a supporting cast that goes into it. You know, like I have aunts that come and help from time to time, but actually as the girls have gotten older, you know, like they've gotten more sustainable. So, and they're just kind of more, self-sufficient now. So as a 4-year-old, like you can be like, hey, put your dish away, and you might have to say it 3 or 4 times, but they'll actually do it. So they're pouring their own milk. Like it's kind of a beautiful world to watch. And I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, dude, a blink of an eye, they're going to come in here and be like, can I borrow the car to go to the store? Like, so yeah, I'm just trying to set the landscape up for everything, prepare, you know, like keeping the balance, all that stuff. But yes, I do think about recording more. As I get older, I think about it more and more and more because I want, I want that documentation, you know, like I want, it's nice to go back and be like, oh yeah, like that was cool. Like that. I got tons of pictures and tons of videos of, you know, like me playing, but, and I do have like a decent amount of like recordings. So it's just, you're really just trying to build on top of this. It's like a portfolio, you know what I mean? when you go to the bank and they're like, let's take a look at your investment portfolio or like whatever. It's like you want to have something to show. And for a long time I didn't.
Let me ask a question that's outside my means here as a non-drummer, but in terms of like making a recording that's memorable, I feel like there's a couple of ways that could go. And one would be like play with a bigger and bigger artist, like on their records or be on those, or work with a bigger and bigger producer. Yeah. And the other one would be like more like a musical goal. Yeah. Like, and which of those is more important, or is that a moot distinction?
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, it seemed like it was a numbers game. It was about quantity, not so much quality. Like the more you're out there, the more you're playing, the more you're exposed. And then as I've gotten older, you know, like I have to, well, especially in this climate, you have to, you know, like if I'm gonna get on stage with somebody, I would like for their personal goals to kind of align with some of mine, and, you know, and hopefully they're a decent person. And, you know, and at the end, you know, like I want to be treated decently, you know, like not as like you're just here because you're here and you're replaceable, you know, like I've been talked like that. I've been talked to by artists like that before, and that, you know, and then like I make my decisions as to, you know, like what's next for me. But yeah, I mean, I toured with a fairly known up and coming songwriter, and I got to record on one of his records, and it was really it was cool, but it, you know, it didn't change much. Or I didn't record on a record; it was a single for a soundtrack, and it really didn't change much. But also, like I kind of knew going into it that it wasn't, because like no one was going to document anything or, you know, like push anything related to that, because it wasn't a record, it was just for a soundtrack. So you know, like sometimes you know you get these opportunities, and you know your job is just to play. Like I'm not thinking about like, let me do this like one thing. It's always about serving the music. So and if the music calls for a feel where the producer's like, hey, you know, I mean, that's John J.R. Robinson. He tells that story about coming up with the feel for Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Or no, Rock With You. That's what it is. Yeah. And you know, like the producer was just like, yeah, you know, like give me a feel that, you know, like every time, you know, like the world hears it, you know, like I can't remember what the specific quote is, but it's like, you know, like, so, you know, going into it, like, okay, like this is going to be huge. Now, granted, I haven't worked with anybody on the level of, you know, like Michael Jackson level, but you just, you know, you have to like walk through that door when the time comes. So, I have recordings that I'm really proud of. And then I have recordings that I'm like, that shows growth right there, you know? So
you hear your own shortcomings in old recordings.
I mean, that, you know, like there is, some of my buddies, we used to always joke, is like when you see somebody on stage and you want to give them a hard time, you're like, oh man, that's cool. I really enjoy what you were trying to do there. You know, like that's what I hear sometimes when I'm, you know, like some of the earlier recordings, I'm like, man, like you're trying to connect the dots, and it's like, it's cool. Like, it's not bad. It's just, you know, like musically we're always evolving. So, you know, yeah, I mean, that's the beauty. And so like the quality level of work changes with it. So
if I got your bio right, you didn't start playing, or you didn't get your first kind of used drum kit until you were 15. And so what among the many musical instruments that I imagine you were exposed to as a kid made you want to take up the drums?
So the skinny of it is my real dad was a drummer. I didn't grow up with him, but I remember he had this like massive like 80s Pearl, like, and not massive by like size, but like the actual depths of the drums, you know, like in the 80s, all the toms, like no toms were like any shorter than like 14 inches long. So I remember him having this red Pearl kit growing up, and, you know, and like a few memories of like sitting on his lap while he was like playing around.
Really quick, just
just
note.
Like, I mean, because he was gone by the time I was 5 years old.
This is okay. I want to get back to that. This is just for my own understanding as a non-drummer. Yeah. Deeper toms deeper sound? Is that why? Is that like the sound of the era?
I think it just looked cool. Like, I mean, just like in the early 2000s, all the toms got really small, and then people were like, I can put them anywhere, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think just at that time,
It was a fashion thing more than a sound thing?
So we were thinking about volume at that time. You got to think about heavy metal was huge. Metal in general was huge. So like, I think your standard, you know, like club pack kit had at least a 13-inch rack tom and a 14-inch and then like a 16 by 16 floor tom. You know, like now we get to today's standards where it's like a 8 by 12, 9 by 13, still a 16 by 16 floor tom. But you know, like it's like a Tootsie Pop. There's no wrong way, or, you know, a Reese's, whatever. There's no wrong way to eat it. So, but yeah, I just remember, and like maybe I was 5. So, you know, like maybe the drums felt bigger than they actually were. But yeah, so I had those memories, and I didn't even know what they were at the time. You know, like I don't think I really even understood or knew what they were until I was in like elementary school, like much later. So like later drums. In like like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. You know, so. But yeah, that's what. So that
was it. So was it maybe a dad thing?
I guess, and you know, like we connected on and off over the years. And, you know, he was always like, I knew somebody was going to play them drums, and like me being me, because I was fun, but I was not like a, you know, like a buddy. I was to my brothers because I grew up with them, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, you didn't have anything to do with it. So, but I do have those memories, and I remember being like, ooh, what are those things? You know, like any kid, like, you hit that and that makes a noise? Like, what? You hold these sticks and you do that? Like, okay.
So was it like a dream as soon as you started going to just like, okay, this is what I want to do? Or, you know, like when you're 15, you're not terribly serious about anything, or most kids aren't, but maybe you were atypical in that way, or was it just something you kind of fell into?
Terrible stage fright. I had to learn that about myself when I was 15. That the first time we played was at this club called IndieNet that used to be off of Church Street across from the Bank of America. Most of the old school Nashvillians, they know what that's about. And it's, I don't know what it is now because they've torn all that down. But we showed up to play our first show, and I was like terrified. I was like sweaty. I was gross, and you know, and I'm messing up all over the place. And you know, like we got off stage and it was like, okay, you know, like we're all 15. It was a 15-year-old band, you know, like with 2 of my best friends. You know, one of them still super, super tight with, and still, you know, like probably my overall best friend to this day. But yeah, we got off and I was like, that wasn't so bad, right? You know, trying to like deflect the pressure off of me there was a local band called Pimp Slap that used to play. It's like a ska band. It was a, you know, IndieNet, all ages venue, throwing, you know, like we would show up with our like indie punk band, you know, and play with like these heavy metal bands. We played with these hardcore bands, like whatever. We were just a band that Aaron Hartley, who ran it, knew that he could throw on and, you know, like bring a handful of people out. And so, but I saw them and like how they played, and they were just so like free, and it was very clear like they were a more established local band. And I was like, all right, like to the side, I was like, I gotta get my shit together because like if I'm gonna do this and it be more than fun, you know, like then I have to learn how to deal with the pressure and the anticipation that comes with it. So
like it was something you wanted to do, but it wasn't like writing down in your journal, like 10 years from now, I'm going to play.
Well, you know, like I had like goals, I guess, that I didn't really like keep track of them in a journal, but like, you know, like subconsciously I was like, they were in there. But, if I'm being honest, TRL changed everything. And I don't know how. I think we're close in age, but like getting up every morning, watching Total Request live before school, and like seeing some bands, you know, like every so often you might see like Jimmy Eats World or, you know, like a cool band or something on there, but just seeing like bands come and visit that show and like the level of success. This was when like late night shows were huge. Conan O'Brien, Leno, Letterman. You know, like seeing these bands on TV and then like equating that to success, like that's kind of where my brain went. So it wasn't so much about success. It was just like, okay, that's the track to like doing this, you know, like, so yeah, I started putting it together, and in this time, you know, like I'm got above a 4.0 GPA, you know, like I'm doing really well in school. I'm getting scholarship offers and all this stuff. Graduated top 10% of my class. I'm starting
to brag, dude. Okay, we already love you, man.
I mean, a diploma's a diploma, you know. I took my grant money and I bought a drum set. So, and I went to Vol State instead of taking any of the scholarships. Don't come looking for me. But, you know, like trying to get it all together, like I you know, so I started playing at 15. I knew at 16 that it was what I wanted to do. So the question from 16 to, I mean, pretty much now still was like, how do we do this? How do we make it work? You know, like, how do we figure it out? Well, I'm in a band, and the band seems like fairly cool. It's 4 or 5 decently looking dudes, you know, like we play fun music. We got a decent draw. Like, okay.
This is Cool Kids.
The Cool Kids was that was the first band I played with. So that would have been the Internet band. This band would have been a band called Sadie Hawkins. So, you know, at this point I'm 17, 18, you know, and then I got kicked out of that band. For reasons that aren't really that important. I didn't do anything bad.
Girls?
But, well, I skipped band practice to hang out with my girlfriend one time. So
there you go.
Yeah, you know.
It's always the same story.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like I called out of work because I was sick, and she came over to make me feel better. So, but things you do when you're a kid. But we, you know, like so I got kicked out of the band. I immediately got scooped up by this other local band called Oliver's Army, which was like a pretty, at that time, Oliver's Army and this other band called Forget Cassettes. Those were like the 2 local powerhouses of what we did. And so, yeah, so they.
It's like kind of like indie rock, like.
Yeah, it was indie, prog, you know, progressive, like whatever.
And what year?
But this would have been 2002 or 3. So yeah, so I'm about 19 then. I'm working at Sam Ash, the job I thought I always wanted, and yeah,
story is old as time.
R.I.P. Sam Ash, unfortunately. But yeah, I was, you know, like I'm 19 and I'm working with 40 and 50-year-old dudes who've like come and gone, and you know, and there was one dude that I remember. I'm not going to say his name, but he worked in the guitar department. And he never really, he was like one of those dudes that just groaned at everything. Like people would be like, all right, you know, like we need to do this. And then so I just steered clear of this guy. I never even went to the guitar department because I was like, just don't want to have any weird run-ins with this guy. And then I get hit with joining this band, and now they're like, and we tour a lot. And so for 19, you know, for somebody who's just like kind of dabbled, played a couple shows in Birmingham, played a couple shows in Atlanta, Chattanooga, you know, just a regional area, you know, they're hitting me with like, all right, we got a 2-week tour coming up to New York and back. And I'm like, or I don't know if I'm supposed to say the F word, but I'm a dad now. Got to be careful. No, I'm just like, what do I, like, I've never been on, you know, like I know about like going out for like a couple days at a time, but like 2 weeks, like what do I, you know? So it was a lot of adjustments and whatnot. But I remember coming back to Sam Ash and being like, yes, I'm putting in a request for 2 weeks off. And my general manager looked at me and just laughed, like, 2 weeks off? Like, what do you think you are? And I was like, well, you know, like I'm going on tour with my band. He was like, tour your band? Like we don't do that around here. This is a job. He was like, if you want to be a musician, go be a musician, but do it on somebody else's time and somebody else's clock. So I was like, all right, well, I guess instead of this being a 2-week request, it's a 2-week notice then. And he was like, so you're really going to quit? And I was like, I mean, this is what I want to do, not this. And, you know, so the next day I'm in the drum department, and when I come in, I'm in like mid-shift. The guitar dude is in there like jamming on some drums. Excuse me.
The guy you were trying to avoid.
The guy I was trying to avoid. And he comes up to me and he goes, and we've never like really had any conversations together. You know, he comes up to me and goes, I hear you going on tour. And I was like, super deep voice like that, like almost Batman. And I was like, yeah, man. Yeah, it's just, you know, like it's just what I got to do. So I got to quit. And he goes, F as many girls as you can, do as much blow as you can, rock it out, party, have as much fun as you can. That's what it's about. And he just walks out of the drum department. That's it. And I was like,
he was waiting for you to give you that advice.
I was like, okay.
And someday
I was like, yeah,
you can come back here.
Exactly. And I'll still be here, and this will still be waiting for you. And, but yeah, like I remember just like kind of sitting there for a minute and was like, wow, like this tour is more heavy than most people think it is, I guess. So, and until you've been on tour, you know, like everybody, I was coming home and in this band, sleeping on floors, sleeping in the van, you know, I've slept on picnic tables. I've slept in parks, you know, like I've hitchhiked several times. But my family was like, our baby cousin, the rock star, be out there touring for all the people, man. Like, we so proud of you. And I'm like, yeah, you know, like out there barely surviving. Yeah, but, you know, like they had like such a distorted view of who I was and, you know, like what I did. So,
man, can relate. And when I moved to Nashville, from the Seattle area. Yeah. And I had a band up there that kind of hit well enough so that when I graduated from college, it was like it was my day job. Yeah. I mean, by the skin of my teeth, but that was enough. And the problem was that living in Washington was just hard to tour out of that corner of the country. Oh, yeah. And so you could go down to Portland, 3 hours, fine. But then it's like
everything else is A+.
Forever. And so that was one of the things that got me to move to Nashville, because all I wanted to know was what it was like to be sick of touring. Yeah. Because I could not imagine it. Yeah. I was just like, I will play anywhere, anytime, by myself, with somebody else. Yeah. I will play guitar for somebody. Just like, I just want to be out there.
That becomes the mindset, you know, like it's not about the money. It's not about anything else. It's about, we will play anywhere as long as you'll have us, you know? So if you'll book us a show, we'll be there. You let us worry about whether it makes sense to drive 36 hours and play one show, you know, like we will be in, like, that's what, so we were real reckless in the beginning. I'm sure as a band in that area, like, you know, you're trying to figure out your way, like it.
Well, also in that, I mean, this is another thing that was great about Nashville was that, you know, it's a serious town. Yeah. You know, you don't survive here unless you're serious. Yeah. Like, and I always felt like before that, whenever I was living either in like my college town, Bellingham, or in Seattle, that like I was just way too serious for like
for
people
what
just
it had
like
to offer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the guys that I was playing with, they were so good, but they were also just like, you know, guys that just had girlfriends, and it was, as long as it was fun, it was fun. But I was just like, no, what do you mean? There's no other possibility for this.
You know, like that's the tricky thing with being that way. And I've tried really hard to not like cast it onto, you know, other people, because I don't want people to be like me. I want people to be their authentic selves. But like when I'm thinking about it, sorry, got dressed in the car apparently. You know, like I've often been praised for my work ethic, and then, you know, like I've been criticized by loved ones for my work ethic. I've missed a lot of holidays. I've missed a lot of birthdays. I've missed anniversaries, you know, like I've missed so many things. Yeah. But to me, when it came to, it's like the work is done when the work is done. And this manager that I was talking with one time about managing my band, he goes, when you wake up and you turn on the radio, what do you hear? And I was like, you hear music. He was like, that's right, because music never stops. So your work is never done. That's the mindset you have to have. And so I was like, I had that mindset for like 20 years where I was like, every morning I'm up 7 a.m. answering emails, routing shows, you know, like trying to do my part to make sure that we get somewhere, go somewhere, get on a label, you know, like whatever it is as an independent band. And I will say, like, musically, you know, for whatever success I've been able to sustain, whatever you want to call it, you know, like I just call it work, and I feel very fortunate and blessed. But Nashville has been a beautiful place for that. And I feel fortunate to have been born here, because it's one of the most centralized hubs you could ever ask for to tour off. You got 6 major cities just in the 3 to 5 hour radius just from there. And then, you know, and then the next major city is another 2 or 3 hours, and then another 2 or 3 hours until you get to about Kansas. And then it's like, you know, now you're 8 hours. Yeah. So the band that I was in at that time, I was like, man, my goals were, I'm still old school like this, where I believe, you know, like now I am writing those goals down, and I never did answer that. So when I was younger, I was like, all right, you know, like we want to be the next Led Zeppelin. Like, that's where my mind was. I was like, I want to be the next band that's like that. And, you know, like I'm 19, 20 now. We can accomplish that by 27. I need to be around 27 because for some odd reason you got the 27 club when like all the people start dying and everything starts happening. So I was like, but that's at that time, that's when I want to start a family, you know? And like, so I'm like trying to plan it out like within my like pretend success and like this life, like, all right, like there'll be, you know, we'll have a couple platinum records by then, you know, you're settled down, pop out a few babies, you know, take a year off and then we're back on the road, you know, like, and, you know, we're figuring it out playing 300 days a year, you know, like, and I'm just like in my mind, like, I think back now and I'm like, you were crazy. Like that, none of that is ever sustainable. And we've seen what's happened to hell. Most of the music venues that I was touring at back then aren't even around anymore. COVID killed all those, you know, like they just weren't able to sustain. So, and, you know, that's what happens, though, when you're taking those gigs any and everywhere. But, yeah, so but Nashville, you know, like being this place, you know, like it kind of was always the place we came back to. And I would see some of my other friends doing other things, you know, like I was recording, you know, like playing in town with like random artists and, you know, and I would get some of those calls. I was just always on tour. So it came down to a point to where, you know, like I made some goals for that band. And the biggest goal was I was like, I want to be able to tour in any direction, north, east, west, south, wherever. And I want to be able to come back with a profit. Now that profit could be $200. Mm-hmm. That profit could be $1,000. It could be $50. But I was like, we can't lose money. So after 6 hard years of touring with that band.
Was that Sadie Hawkins?
No, this would have been Oliver's Army, which turned into Sound and Shape because the bass player and the rhythm guitar player left, and it was just me and the principal songwriter and lead guitar player. So then we drafted a new bass player, recruited a new rhythm guitar player, and then we were a trio for a long time, and that's what we were when at the end was just a trio. But yeah, I was like, that was my goal. And so around 2008, we did a year where we went up to New York and back. We did it in a week and a half. We went down to Tallahassee and back. We did that in a week and a half. And we went out to LA and back in 2.5 weeks. And we made money on all 3 of those tours. And yet I still was unhappy with the level of success. Like me and the guitar player were starting to butt heads a little bit about the, you know, like the creative side of things. And yeah, one thing led to another. I got a call from a buddy that was like, hey man, we need a drummer for this thing. And I saw that, you know, like I was planning on routing a tour in that time. And I said, I'll take it. And that was the start of me making my move to like, okay, I'm a drummer for hire, you know, now. And then, yeah, like I eventually, we had, so the final straw was we had that manager, you know, like music is always on. And that dude's passed away since then. But like a lot of the things that we talked about, because I picked him up from the airport and I drove him back. He managed Kiss, he managed Billy Idol, like all these heavy 80s hitters. And yeah, like his stuff was like really, really simple the way, I mean, it would definitely be very sexist now, but he was like, you know, he was like, I mean, it's really simple. He was like, you know, like dudes need to want to be you and girls need to want to be with you. He was like, that's the appeal you need to have. And you could be a rock star just like that overnight. Mm-hmm. And he was like, and so, you know, like you got to ask yourself, like, is that what you want? You know, is that the life you want? Like, do you have that? Do the other guys have that? And, you know, like I definitely was like, well, that's not the lifestyle I want because, you know, like I want it to be more art driven and, you know, and like about what I'm actually doing, not about like what I'm wearing while I'm out there or what I look like. I mean, it doesn't help to be cute, but I'm just playing. But, you know,
that's
like
I had you on a filmed podcast, man. Yeah, this ain't no audio experience.
So, I mean, you know, I do okay. But yeah, so like I started thinking about all that stuff and it just led me to, I was like, I need to try something else, you know, like I don't want to play 10-minute songs anymore. And so, yeah, so.
I mean, I didn't know that about your history, that it was so band intensive when you were young.
Oh, I was love that. One band dude, man, for a long time. Cause that's all, if you ask anybody that truly knows me, they'll tell you all the time, all I ever wanted was to play for one group. one artist, one band, I ended up doing the multi and being the guy that plays for everybody because I didn't know what to do, and I'm a yes guy. Like, I don't like to say no. And, and when somebody calls, if you call and you're like, hey man, I need a drummer for like a thing, it's a vulnerable place to be in, to, like you're sharing your art, your talent with someone, and you're asking them to show up and be a part of that, and hoping that they'll enhance and add to it. And so any call I get, little, small, like whatever, I take it all the same way. And to me, it's, like I'm thankful for, like anyone that calls, because there's, I got thousands of numbers in my phone, and I don't want to know what other people's phones look like, but I am the drummer in my house, and and like what I do doesn't mean that I don't have 45 other drummers in my phone, so like, and this is Nashville, so there's thousands of us, tens of thousands of us, so yeah, anytime I get a call, I'm like, man, yeah, I'm excited to go on that journey and see what it's about.
Artistic question. One of my laments, and it's really maybe the only one musically, from having been here for 20 years and being such a fan of Nashville and the scene and the talent here, is that bands are at a premium in this town, like a real band, like the same 3 guys or 5 guys. Yeah. And whenever you see a great band, there's, you can find guys everywhere that you backing artists that maybe memorize their charts, and they're technically at such a level that they're not making it sounds great, but it ain't a band in the same way. And so do you miss that a little bit, like that, not just the musical experience of it, but just that kind of the underneath, the personalities, the stories, the shared fates, the romance.
Yeah, it being romance is like key, right? Like, because your bromance, like whatever you want to call it, like you're building something together. It's not just
the
like, hey, I got
higher.
these shows and these are the dates that I need you. We're gonna rehearse one time. It's like, when you're in a band, like you're having dinner nights together, and like you're intermingling your time and family and friends, and all these. I'd say Okro was like the last band that I was in. Like it may like seem like very like like one way or another, but like everything that operates behind closed doors, like it is a band. Like they do a lot of stuff. And it's a band that operates often. So like we did a lot of community based events, and then like everything so when I joined, they had just bought this building that was going to house a studio and like a space, and so like oftentimes I would just go over there to like pick something up, and people would be writing over there, people would just be hanging out, or people working on stuff. Like all my drum stuff was there, so like if I needed to work out on something, like I had the space to do so. But we all spent a lot of time coming in and out of that building, being there, working together, whatever it was on. So it was really cool to like be not just like, all right, like we have these shows coming up and we need you for rehearsals on these days, like we were all heavily involved. So yeah, like I definitely miss elements of that for sure. The problem with being in a band though is, like you got to share everything 6 ways, like you got so that's 6 inputs, like that's 6 splits, 6 inputs, 6 feelings, 6, versions, like it's a lot of thoughts. Now, obviously, like with Ketch being, like kind of more of like the leader of that band, like there's, you have like 5, and then that guy is the, the kind of the tiebreaker or whatever, if you will. So, but yeah, so, like there were a lot of times where I'm like musically, like I'm feeling this and I think this is the way to go. And, like, I know you guys have been a band for 30 years, but like, I was logging, about 700 performances every year. It felt like, because I was playing triples and doubles all the time. And so it was like musically, like I have a lot of idea. And so I had to like sit that aside and remember, like what it's like to be in a band and not just, you can't just come in hot, and, and like, and it's not always about, you. And I've always been like a guy that like, I don't give my opinion unless I'm asked anyway. But like in the back of my head, I'd be like, we should be doing this, and we should be doing it this way and that way. But it wasn't my band; it was our band, So, but yeah, I there's definitely elements of it that I miss.
Do I have that right that you played for Bob Dylan, or you do, or are you in the?
He
band?
was that up and coming songwriter I was talking about.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was for the Ronald Reagan movie soundtrack. So I'm just playing little brushes on there. But yeah, I was in the what is it, the Never Ending Tour for a year and a half. So I came in after Charlie Drayton, and then when I left, he got Jim Keltner. So like for me, I was like, man, that's cool to be, like those are two names that I grew up like knowing about, and the reception was fairly well.
How did that come about? Tell me the story.
Man, I'm sworn to secrecy.
Well, yeah, whatever you can.
But I got a call from management, and I thought it was a joke. I really did. I was like,
yeah, I mean, it is.
Nobody from Bob Dylan's calling me. So I went on about I haven't really told this story much. Like a few friends, but I've never really said it on air. So it's the 30th. It's December 30th, and we're getting ready to have Old Crow's New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve shows at the Ryman. And I get that call, and I was like, I'm getting ready. I'm packing my stuff up for the Ryman. I'm like, I don't have time for jokes. So I go to Ryman, I play the show. And I get a call again the next day. And it was like, hey, we just, so I answered this time. I was like, just wanted to, make sure you got the call and the message yesterday, and like to see if you'd be interested in joining Bob Dylan's band in 2023, going out on tour. And I was like, for real? And he was like, yeah. It was like, yeah, I'm clearly interested. He was like, great. That's all I need to know. He was like, just wait for further instructions. Don't mention this to anybody. And I was like, kind of weird as shit. Yeah. So, and my wife was in the room at the time. And so she's looking at me kind of like, what was that? And I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I think I just played my last Ryman show with Old Crow, and like I didn't know how to feel about it, the feelings were very confusing, and so like I went to the Ryman, and like nothing was different, and I was just sitting there thinking in my head, I was like, I'm just trying to process it, and then all of a sudden I was like, you know what, like still feels like a joke. Like I thought maybe my ex-girlfriend had put somebody up to it or something like that. Like it just felt like it didn't feel right. So I was like, man, not even sweating that anymore. I'm gonna go on about my business. So, we've recorded a record. They got nominated for Grammy. Like things are going well, like we're planning the tour, getting the album artwork, all this stuff together. And the call finally comes in, and it's like, all right, so Bob would like for you to be in LA on these dates for rehearsal, and these are the tour dates. First tour's in Japan. It's this long, this is blah, blah, blah. You'll go out, you'll have one practice. If they like what they see, you can keep going. If they don't, then you'll just go back to Nashville. And so like now all of a sudden it's like real, so I was like, wow, okay. All right. And so now I have to start like putting all the other stuff together. So
did they give you a song list to learn?
He said all he's been doing is his new record. And he was like, so, we've just been doing a new record, and but don't try to learn any of it. Just show up and respond. And I was like, okay, cool. So, but like to me, and they're still like, don't tell anybody. So to me, I'm like, all right, well, first things first, sit down with Old Crow. Figure out what's going on. Will it work? Will it all work together? Because my intentions were never to leave the band. My intentions were to try to do both, make it work. And Ketch just like laughed, and he was like, dude, they don't call it the Never Ending Tour for a reason. Like you can't do both. Like you just, so it was mixed feelings. Like we're happy for you, but we're upset, like this is great, but like also like
bummer,
we're in the middle of a lot of stuff going on. So, like when they, sorry, I got some in my eye. When they started, auditioning other people, and whatnot, I was super supportive. I was like, whatever you need from me, if I need to help somebody with, you know, like count-ins, break down, you know, like what I've been doing, whatnot. But like they kind of just wanted to handle it on their own. It was a little touch and go, and I was like, I get it. But yeah, like that was and then my mindset moved straight to like, okay, well, they're finding their replacement. How do you pack for one day or 3.5 weeks, you know? So then my mindset immediately switched to, I'm packing for 3.5 weeks. I'm not coming back. Like, that's what I literally told my wife. I said, I'm not coming back. I was like, I'm going to Japan. That's just where we're at. And so they were like, okay, so now that's where I'm at in my mind. I'm like, all right, here we go. Let's get ready for Japan. And these songs that I don't know.
You go to the audition. Were you like shitting bricks to go to the audition? Were you feeling pretty ice?
No, I was, I felt like, you know, everything musically that I'd done up to that point had led me there, you know, like it was, it might not have been the gig that I always wanted, but it was, you know, like it was the level of, you know, and, I remember just, thinking to myself, this is where Steve Jordan, I remember me and him were hanging out one night and he was like, man, you are where you're supposed to be. You know, like there's no like coincidences, no like this is chance. It's like you are where you're supposed to be. So like that's kind of what was going through my head. I was like, I'm supposed to be here, you know. So like musically, they saw something in me that, you know, that made sense.
And who saw something? Did you ever find out?
I mean, yes, but you know, like I said, I'm sworn to secrecy on how like the rest of, I got to save something, you know, so
for the memoir.
Cause I said, I don't normally ever talk about any of this stuff. It's just, you know, like to me, it's honestly, it's been so long since, I left the band that it doesn't even, you know, like it's like a blimp. Like it feels like it never even happened.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. Like I did do that for like almost 2 years.
I mean,
like,
is there a Dylan story
whatever
you could share? Like just from that tour or, I mean, not for me, but you know, just for,
I mean, I got enough to write a book. And maybe
exactly.
I
I was like, give us one, you know? Like, is he really as eccentric as, you know, it seems?
Oh, he's the dude that you, you know, that everybody thinks he is. He's mysterious. And, you know, so there was one, we were going through a sound check and we were trying to figure out this song. Man, I don't know. I got the biggest eyelash in my eye. Apologies.
Beauty can be a curse.
What's that?
Beauty can be a curse.
Beauty can be a curse, man. But anyway. We were going through the sound check, trying to figure it out for a show. And I jumped ahead he was like kind of hanging on a part and I jumped ahead to the chorus because I thought he was going to go there. He turned around and he was like, JP, I'm not there yet. You got to wait, man. You got to wait. And I was like, all right. I was like, fair enough. Like, you know, so like we got there and then it, like what I was playing wasn't right. So like we stopped and, you know, like I remember just being like, hey, so Bob, what do you hear right there? He just ignored me. And I was like, all right, well, that's not good. And we went over it again and, you know, like I played something different and it was like, you know, kind of in the ballpark of what I thought like made sense right there. And then we get done. We're, you know, like we don't have the song together and he gets up and he walks away. He turns around. He goes, don't ask me what I want to hear. I don't fucking know. But I know when I hear it. He walked away. That was it. And I was like, okay. Great. All right. And when we played the song, it went off and it was great. Yeah. And, you know, and like everybody was like stoked about it and the way it happened and it went down. But yeah, like I remember at that time, I was just like, yeah, that was stupid. Why did I ask him that? But you know, like I didn't know, you know. Yeah. So, and I think I was like 2 or 3 months in at that point. So, just trying to figure it out. But yeah, so
dream gig, man. Yeah. I can't wait for the memoir.
Oh yeah, you know, like you know, maybe I don't write a book. I don't know. I mean, like to me, like they're just stories. They're like urban legends. You know, like I remember in that time, what was the most annoying was that people were never writing about. There were some people that were like raving about the things that I was doing in that band, the way that I was playing, like whatever. But and then there were some people that were like, he looks like an alien with those white glasses, and I'm like, and that's all they would say. And I was like, you don't want to care to talk about the music or like what's going on, like. But anyway, so. It was an interesting time. I think the hardest time though was, like those tours just got longer and longer. First one was 3.5 weeks. The next one was 6.5 weeks. The last one we did that year was 10.5 weeks. It's a long time to be gone from your wife. No break. So
10.5 weeks.
10.5 weeks. And I did in that time
hard.
period. I did rent a car. We played 2 shows in Cincinnati. I can't remember which one was on which side. We either played 2 shows in Cincinnati, had 2 days off, and then played 2 shows in Indianapolis. And I rented a car, drove home, spent those 2 days with my family, and then drove back the next morning. But like that was, and that was about 3 weeks into that 10.5 week tour, because obviously the longer you go on tour, the further and further you go away. I mean, I think we went all the way up to Vermont or something. Mm-hmm. So, and then at that point, like we weren't that far removed from the pandemic. So like I think most managers are like, no, you're not flying, or, like you're not doing anything. Like you're for risk. If you can, if you're going to go somewhere, you can go a couple hours away and you be responsible for renting a car and come back. But like, I never got any clearance from anybody like that. I'm just used to, like figuring those things out. One year we had a day off in LA, and I was like, I came on the bus and I said, I'm renting a car and I'm going to Disneyland. Anybody wants to go, you can come with me, but that's what I'm doing today. And I was like, I've figured out all the logistics for myself, and I came back with Mickey ears. It was great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I laugh like a kid, man. I never, because I grew up.
That's the childhood dream again.
I never had a
back.
childhood like that, So, and I, there's a lot of it for me that's, I'm like, I want to be able to give those things to, to my kids. Not that I'm regretful that I didn't have them, but and I definitely don't want to be one of those parents that's like, I want to give them everything I never had. It's just, like right now it seems like time is what they need. So, I have 2 great gigs that give me a little bit more time, and it's great. I need to be at home right now. And that's kind of how it was when I left the band. I was like, I need to be at home. So I didn't take any gigs for the summer. I didn't take the Solo Asylum gig came up in the fall. But I was like, I need to be at home right now. So that's what I did. I stayed at home, and my wife appreciated it, the girls. And then they got to the point to where they started telling me they didn't want me to leave anymore. Daddy, do you have to go to work? And I'm like, it's only going to get worse from here on out. So I had that same thing this morning. Dropped them off. I was like, I'm running late for work. And they're like, so you're leaving again? I'm like, I'm not leaving, just working in town. So
I was just we actually had Ron Pope on the pod last week, and we were talking about gigs and kids.
One of my favorite bosses I've ever had.
Yeah. What a classy guy. I love him. Great conversation too. And we were talking about, he has a daughter who's
Frankie.
Yeah, Frankie's right around your girl's age.
She's a few years. She's about 3 years older, 3 or 4 years older. But I was on tour with him while Blair was pregnant with Frankie.
I was riffing with him about touring with kids and expressing my current take, which is having toured a whole bunch and then really wanted to prioritize having a family. We have this little girl now. She just turned 1. Mm-hmm. Talking with my wife, Randa, it's like, I think kind of the only way I want to really tour now is to take the family with me. Mm-hmm. And he said, he laughed at me and he was just like, yeah, it's pretty good from between 2 and 5. And he's like, then the problem is they go to school and then they start having all these friends and they start having all these activities. Mm-hmm. And, they got ballet and they got piano lessons and
we
they
were
got
both just at the dance recitals together.
I didn't even occur to me that like, wait a second, she might not want to come with her dad on the road endlessly.
No, at 3, the girls, so they came, we played, we did 2 nights in Louisville when I was out with Bob, and they came and stayed with me in, my room, and, swim in a hotel pool, and, had a great time, went to museums and zoos and all of the stuff. Did the same thing when we played in St. Louis, and and they were like, we're going on tour. It's so exciting, at like 2. But like now they're like, they just talk about hanging out with their friends, and they still get really excited for tour. But I always keep in mind, I'm like, this is my life, and I don't want to. School is very important. We're touring schools as we speak, trying to figure out where they're going to go to kindergarten next year. Like them having there's consistency that comes in mind when you're like talking about being a parent, trying to create like, like a level of consistency for them, like, so that way that their level of productivity is just based around them getting to be a kid, and like getting to have their normal life. And when you throw kids out, like what I'm learning is kids don't do anything fast. And they, if they're used to getting a snack every day at 3:30, like you better believe come 3:31, like they're going to be like, I'm starving. And, and it's like, so you need to have something available. And, like I told my wife early on from the get-go, I was like, I'm just going to let you know how this works. When we were dating, I was like, I don't have any control over my schedule. I don't have any control over my time. I was like, I will try my absolute hardest to answer the phone every single time you call. But if I don't, it's because I'm playing or I'm playing cards. Very serious about cards. I was like, those are the only times that I don't answer the phone. For the most part, like I am trying to be available and I'm doing 3 or 4 things at once. But like, I don't have control over what I get to eat for breakfast most days. Like you're just subject to your environment, like when I was in Japan, we had sushi every single day and it was amazing. But I'm from Nashville. I was dying for a biscuit. I was like, I went to McDonald's because I was like, I need a biscuit, please. And then I show up and they don't have biscuits at McDonald's. There were no biscuits to be found. I was like, I mean,
what's the equivalent at the McDonald's in Japan?
They just don't serve breakfast. Yeah. Like like I did have the traditional like Japanese breakfast and it was amazing, but like I can't eat that every single day. Like I'm a vegetarian. So like I need eggs, I need protein, like I need the things that I was used to. And so, but you adapt and, as an adult, it's much easier to do that. And like, as much as it would have been cool to be like, kids, let's go to Japan for 3 weeks. Like, I also feel like them and my wife would have suffered because of all the extra work to keep them, together. And it's not my gig, so like, it's not me. It's, so, like to put them in that, like Ron's the artist, like, and Blair, his wife, is the manager. So, like they can figure out all those things. But like me, I'm just a dude in the background, like I'm not on a t-shirt or anything like that. It's like the artist. And I'm a dude that they call in sometimes to, like play on a gig. Here lately, most of the artists I've been playing for, like they can play solo if they want. They can play as a duo, like they don't always take a full band out. Mm-hmm. So, so it's interesting, but like we both showed up not knowing that, like I didn't know Frankie was in ballet. He didn't know the girls were in ballet. And so we just sat there and had a good time, like waiting for the whole thing was an hour, like watching the kids dance all over the stage.
Oh wait, they're in the same ballet class?
Yeah. They're in the same ballet school class, just, like just different age groups, so so like it was, and it's, like I said, I came, I was fortunate to be playing with Ron, like when Blair was having Frankie, and it was just really cool. And I remember we were on the bus and I showed up and I had a baby shower gift for him. He was like, dude, you're the only person in the band that brought me a baby shower gift. And I was like, well, yeah, we're like family. Like we'd been on the road for like a year at that point. So I was like, yeah, we're like family, right? Like that's what family does. And he was just like, so like we knew right then and there, like we're going to be boys for a while. So he's one of those few, like when he calls and he has a gig in town, like I'm only concerned about whether I can be there. And he knows if I can make it work, if it's the 3rd gig of the day, like as long as I can be there in that block, I'll be there and I'll be ready. So,
you strike me as one of the more even-keeled people I've met in this industry of
oh man, I'm crazy off mic.
Yeah. Well, you might be, but my question is that, like, was there a point at which you learned that the obvious truth that is a huge part of the gig is sort of your bedside manner, your ability to get along with all different kinds of people, and did that come naturally to you, or did you kind of have to like access? There were
small little things that I had to tweak along the way, but I'm the second youngest of 5 boys. That's put up 4. 5 boys. And so like, yeah, you got to grow up fast when you grow up with older brothers, because like they're always trying to get over on you. They're always, you know, like wrestling with you and, you know, like looking for weaknesses, you know. So, and I had my oldest brother was like the ultimate, like, I'm going to make a man out of you at 10 years old. So, you know, like, and we were all,
how old was he then?
Hey, he would have been 25. So we were all like, you know, like kind of, it's like, all right, like William's the enforcer, you know? So, so, you know, like you pay attention. And also, you know, like, I think I'm serious about cards because my mom was serious about cards, you know, like my mom was so when her and my granddad and my grandma, they only had 3, but she had 10 her marriage before. So I got a whole host of aunties and uncles and cousins, and, you know, so you just like, when you grow up in a really big family, like you have to, you know, like you don't want to be the person that's drawing the attention. You don't want to be the person that's always getting in trouble. You don't want to be because there's enough of that happening already. So you just kind of read between the cracks. Like I practically raised myself, you know. I was coming home at 8 years old. I had a key to my house. I knew where I lived. I was making my own meals. Yeah, like life was just like different then. I was babysitting other people's kids at 8 years old. Like it's just different. So when I got on the road, like I was very well aware of like keeping myself to me and my space and cleaning up after myself, you know, like being, you know, it's kind of like being a good roommate, you know, like that's what the road is. Like bunk alley, you got 10 roommates, 11 roommates, you know, like whatever. So that means that there's 12 people's stuff, 12 people's shoes, 12 people's backpacks, you know? So, so the more you can do to be self-sufficient and, you know, and like kind of
minimize
be
your
out of the
footprint.
way. Yeah. The things that I had to learn were like, green room etiquette. You know, like I believe in being ready, and being ready for a drummer is warming up, practice pad and sticks. That sound can be annoying for a lot of people. You know, like you're just off to a corner. It's like I'm in my own world, but for somebody who might be trying to tune a guitar or trying to do a vocal warm up, like that could be really annoying. So, you know, like I had to find that place where I was like, and I'm still in it. I was like, this ain't about me. I was like, I'm a chain on the link. And so like for me to get myself ready, I need to figure out a way to do that without interfering with the ways that people get themselves ready, because some people don't have that privilege to just go. So like the cool thing about being the drummer, especially about, you know, like being the drummer of an artist that might travel a lot, might use different musicians all the time, is you can literally just go and sit in a stairwell. You can go sit in the back of the venue, you know, like you have all these, and, you know, like, and just don't, you know, like, hey everybody, I'm the drummer, you know, like just don't draw any, you can tuck away somewhere and find a place to warm up, find a place to practice, you know, like, you don't always have to blow up the green room bathroom. You can go and use a bathroom somewhere else. Like you have to like think about these things, you know, so that way, you know, like you just don't want to be an inconvenience on anyone. I'm not saying you can't be you know, I'm not saying you can't be your authentic self, but you just kind of have to think about, like everybody as a whole. And so,
yeah, it's just like real life. I mean, no one wants to suppress anyone, be your authentic self, but realize you're sharing the space with other people. Those things can coexist.
So, I mean, like I go out and get donuts. I bring donuts for everybody, you know, like I would, you know, I mean, there were some times where I didn't bring donuts for everybody. I just bring like donut holes or something like that. But I tried to, you know, like to be a good roommate.
Stuff like that goes so far. People don't really realize that. How just little efforts and little gestures.
I just think that there, you know, and like there was one of the bands I was in along the way, there was a younger dude in the band, and like I really, you know, I could tell that like I'm used to being the young dude in the band, and so I could tell that some of the older guys were like kind of starting to get annoyed, and I was like, you start sharing a green room with me, like let's start hanging together. I'm gonna take you shopping, you know, like let me help you with you know, like figure out, and I'd just be dropping these little, you know, like life bombs and just trying to explain some of the things I've learned over the time, because I wanted him to make it, you know, like I wanted him to sustain on the gig. I didn't want him to get picked on, you know, like unfortunately somebody always ends up being like the little brother in the band. And that was the thing with the Bob thing, is I was like, you know, those dudes were all 20 years older than me. So I was like, I don't want to be the little brother. I want to be like the nephew, you know, that you come and you're like, check out this Playboy, or like, hey, come hit this, or, you know, like, take a little sip of this. Don't tell your mama though. Everything comes with, you know, like, I was like, I want to be like the cool nephew that they're like, he can hang with us, you know? So that's kind of how I went into it, because I didn't want to be the little like tag, hey guys, wait for me. You know, like, can I come? You know, like so I spent a lot of time by myself though, because, you know, like touring is it has its own schedule, and this is on like most tours, but like I like to work out. I like to run. You know, like I stay up till 3 a.m. watching Martin reruns. You know, like I like to eat cereal. You know, like I do a lot of things that I don't necessarily get to do at home. And a lot of that is just deep thinking sometimes, planning, structuring. So,
yeah. Having running be your exercise is a great one for touring.
Yeah.
I did that. That was a big part of my daily life on the road, was after the gig, oftentimes, as long as I didn't have like more than a beer.
Yeah.
2 beers, it starts getting 3 beers, then I'm not running.
Yeah.
But most of the time I'd come back to the hotel or wherever I was staying, and I'd just go for a run at night.
You're heavy
It's just
after
like
3 beers. Yeah.
you're feeling a little heavy.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's
I'll
just
get
like
the late night gym workout, and I remember I was at Soul Asylum and like we did a gig, and Dave, we were walking the hotel, and Dave was like, "What are you gonna do tonight?" And I was like, "I think I'm about to go to the gym." He was like, "You can go to the gym?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "After we played?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, like I was like, we you know, we haven't played an hour set," and he was like, "Okay, have fun." Like, you know, I was just like, that's just, I didn't get it in that morning. And I felt like, you know, sometimes I go to bed and I'm like, I didn't do enough today. And I know I do a lot in every, like, I'm one of those people, I'm going to squeeze every single thing into every single day that I can. No minute is wasted because I just have a lot of responsibilities.
That's industriousness, man. I mean, that's, I feel like a big part of your success and really anyone's success. And I'm just curious, is that like, where did that come from?
I would say my granddad is the first person that I ever saw with a worth ethic like that. And I don't know if it was so much worth ethic or if it was just like his way of living, because, you know, you got a bunch of grandkids and he would just come in. He retired from like 2 or 3 different jobs, I feel like. And I, you know, like one was like he was working at Nabisco, but he was also a handyman. Like he did all these, you know, like he was in the Korean War. Like he's had all these different like lifetimes, but he would come in with like a sack of Wendy's junior bacon cheeseburgers and just drop them on the table, not say anything to anybody, and just like walk out. You know, like he was the ultimate like provider, and it was just like, as long as you didn't, you know, like, and he's definitely from that like we don't take no mess generation. So, but yeah, you know, like I just, that dude worked from the minute he got up to the minute that he like fell asleep on the couch watching the news. You know, like that was. So like growing up with that image, like, all right, like you got to be one of those dudes if you're going to support your family and going to sustain and take care of, you know, like business, TCB, you got to work from the minute you get up to, you know, so now it's like from the minute I get up to the minute I pass out in the girls' room with the sound machine running, trying to read books and, you know, trying to keep them entertained. So, yeah.
It's exhausting.
Dude, their room is so cushy. I'm like so jealous. It's like sound machine. It's pitch black, dark.
Yeah.
The temperature is perfect. I'm like, man,
this time of year is probably a little on the cozy side.
Man,
so nice.
like and then I go to our room and I'm just like, it's dry in here and it's cold. So, yeah. Now, it's, you know, everything's different in it. It's kind of, you know, like visually just trying to make the most of these, you know, these moments. And so, with my wife working more of like a 9-to-5 structured job, I'm like, I'm the catch-all, you know, yeah. I'm the dude that's going to go do the grocery shop and pick up the errands, you know, like whatever, because when I'm gone, you know, like I know her life structurally changes drastically. And
does she still work while you're gone?
Yeah, she still works.
Who is the catch-all then? Is it?
I mean, I think everything just kind of goes to the evening, and now instead of doing the, I mean, just wait until you take your baby girl to the grocery store and she can actually reach out and grab everything that you pass in the aisles. I got 2 of those on both sides. You know, like, Daddy, can we have this? Ooh, Daddy, we haven't had that in a long time. Ooh, Daddy, what about this? I'm like, every aisle we go down, and I'm like, this is why we do the grocery shopping while you're at school.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like a lot of
also, dude, hot tip. I don't know if you ever do it online or at Whole Foods. They'll deliver it for free.
We did it in the beginning. Now it's like a lot of like, we forgot
this
thing. And so, you know, like I'll pick them up from school and then we'll go real quick. But like sometimes also they're at a fun age where, you know, like it's fun to go to the store and we get the green shopping cart at Kroger's and they love riding around in that thing. And like, it's cool. It's like, it's an activity, you know, they're definitely in an age where they want to go places all the time. So I'm like, yeah, these are responsibilities. This is life. You know, this is adulting. This is what we have to do to make sure, you know, everybody stays healthy and gets what they need.
I love it. One last musical question. Yeah. And
sorry if this was more family oriented. I'm like, Daddy,
no, I mean, this is,
days,
I'm trying to keep it not doing that just because I love talking about that stuff. Because
well, family's a big deal in the landscape of what we're trying to do here. You know, like I think if you keep that, you know, frontmost, you know, like I think you'll always lead with good intentions and your heart shows that you're trying to be a provider. You're, you know, like you're making sure that, you know, like things are taken care of and that level of stability and consistency is there.
I mean, something, I don't know about you, but when I was young, I didn't care about anything but my job and making music and writing another song and writing the best song possible. And I was willing to like make any sacrifice. Yeah. And there was a romance part of it and suffering part of it. And when I listen back to like songs when I was in my 20s, I'm like, why this guy is so sad? I'm like, and I was sad and I loved being sad. You know what I mean? And then something shifted a little bit for me. Like there's something I realized along the way that was just like, this will take everything from you and give nothing back if you let it. Like, and I've watched this happen to other people.
I see it happen to people all the time.
Yeah. And it's because it is as consuming as you want to let it be. And so anyway, at some point, something shifted in me where I was just like, I kind of want to have an amazing life. Yeah. And music is going to be part of that life, and writing is going to be part of it, and creativity and film, like the stuff I do with my wife. But like a huge part of that is going to be, I mean, actually like another huge part of it is like my personal health. I'm really, I wouldn't even say, like, I hate people who talk about their workouts, most annoying thing ever. But, you know, it's like a big part of my daily routine and eating well and stuff like that. And part of it's just because like watching my folks get older and realizing that like a lot of the limited mobility and stuff they're having, they're granted in their 80s. Because they, you know, it could be prevented. Anyway, but the third thing is just like, and the most important thing really is the family. And it's just like, it's such an important foundation for everything. And it's just like that fundamental reorientation. It's like, I had a few girlfriends before I met my wife, and I feel bad in the like thinking back about how I maybe not treated them, but just like how they
the
related to me. Because it was a priority number 2.
I had a ex-girlfriend for a long time, and you know, and like constantly felt like she was on the back burner. And in my mind, like all I could focus on was the next gig. Like, how do I get to this level that, you know, like I was trying to achieve? And excuse me. And that often meant like canceling date nights because a gig came up, or, you know, like canceling trips because, you know, like so-and-so moved to rehearsal. And so now like I can't go on the whole trip because I have this one. Like that clearly, you know, like essentially showing someone that music was always going to be more important than them in every decision I made. Like that's a hard place to be. And so, you know, like I met my wife on tour, you know, like we had a lot of talks, you know, and, you know, just trying to figure out, cause we were long distance for like a year, and just trying to figure out like if this was the right choice for both of us and if it made sense. And yeah, like at one point I was just like, I'm always going to be a musician, you know, like I'm not sure what kind of a musician I'm going to be. And like right now, like it's eat, sleep, breathe, you know, like this is what I do. But I'll tell you one thing, man, you know, like we worked it out. We figured out, you know, like communication was key. So I learned to communicate better because of her, and, you know, and just being upfront about things like as it can transparency. But man, when them girls came out, I didn't care about anything else. And like all of a sudden, boundaries became really important. Limitations. Okay. Like these are expectations, and this is, you know, like this is the structure of our life and what we're building together. All of a sudden, it's not a quantity game anymore. It becomes, I had to start doing the thing that I hate the most, is saying no. Because I remember the girls were born on a Tuesday, and I got called to play a gig that Saturday. And I told the guy, I was like, look, I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't have any time to rehearse. I don't have any time to do any, but I said, if you're okay with me just showing up at the gig and playing without any rehearsals, I will be there and I'll be prepared. I said, but I can't take multiple days out to come to these 2 band practices you have. I can't come to sound check early. You know, like I was like, you just tell me when the show is, what the set order is, and put out the details of, you know, like, oh, this, we end the song like this now. And, you know, like this change, and I'll be there. And I was like, and I'll crush it. I have no doubts. And he was like, cool. That works for me. And I was like, so that ended up like I had to start, you know, like trying to find ways that, and I was like, I wasn't trying to push the gig away. I was just being honest with the mental capacity that I had. I'm coming off of 2 rough nights at the hospital where they didn't sleep at all. And, you know, like my practice room was far from anything that I was thinking about at that time, you know, trying to make sure my wife was, you know, like healthy and comfortable and getting back to the house. Luckily, my wife's folks were in town, you know, so like we had a little flexibility, but it's like, yeah, I was able to get away while they were taking one of their mini naps during the day, go play the set at the 5 spot and then come back home like nothing ever happened. But, you know, limits and boundaries, like that becomes the new, like, and, you know, like I said, as they get older, then it's not so life or death, but yeah.
Well, and also, I feel like you have a lot of leeway with how you want the world to be if you can communicate.
Yeah.
You know, like communicating with your partner, obviously, but also communicating with anybody you do business with. Yeah. And if that communication comes from a place of like clearly understood priorities, it's almost easy. It's when the priorities get confused things get messed up.
I think when, you know, like, and that's, man, I think most people that when they hire me to do anything, like one of the top 5 questions I'm going to ask is expectations. Like, how involved do you want me to be? How little, you know, like how, you know, like what's my role? Like, what do you see like me doing it? Just so that way I can make sure that we're all on the same page and I'm giving you, you know, like what you asked for. Because like, honestly, to me, I'm gray, you know, like I'm neutral. Like I'm not there for my opinions and you know, like I'm going to put my little touch on it. And, you know, like I'm gonna do the things that, you know, you asked me to do, but like, I'm not showing up and you being like, yeah, man, you know, like I really want you on brushes on this song. And I'm like, well, I think it needs drums and here we go. And I'm gonna count it in, you know, like I'm gonna give you, you know, what you want and I'm gonna make it the most musical that I can. But, you know, like it really becomes about this landscape of like everybody. And, you know, like that's what I was talking about earlier, like trying to figure this stuff out at a young age. It's not just about you. And so like, to me, as I've gotten older, character and integrity are like 2 things that are really big. And I think like what I've tried to make my name synonymous with is, you know, like consistency and dependability, you know? So like when people hire me, like I really think in my lifetime, I've only played like 2 shows that I was like under prepared for. Like everything else, if I had to stay up till 3 a.m. rehearsing songs the night before, like, and show up on an hours of sleep, like I'm going to do that until I feel like comfortable, you know, because I had the flexibility for a long time. So now I just have to be more particular about taking those gigs with whatever limited time. But like, I don't ever want to leave anybody hanging. Like to me, that's what a scene is. That's what, you know, like being a part of something greater than yourself is. That's what being that chain is about. Like if I'm falling apart, that chain's going to fall apart. And the last person you want on stage to fall apart is the drummer, you know? So like, you got to keep that engine moving. And like, I think about that as a whole as, you know, like I don't want to take a gig unless I know I can do it, unless I know I can do it well. I don't want to take a gig unless I can, you know, like be there for all of it and figure it out. Like now, as soon as we hit downbeat, like I'm probably going to, depending on the time, I'm probably going to go home and try to read books to my kids before I go to bed. But, yeah, like I just think about all those little things that like build up to that. And, you know, like when you call somebody, you know, you don't want to be like, okay, now I have to worry about whether this guy's going to listen to the songs I sent, whether he's going to show up. Like, you just want to like call them and get off and go on with the rest of your day.
Yeah.
You know? So like, that's what I've tried to be. And I remember years ago, like I was playing one of 3 sets in a night, and like I showed up and I'm just sitting in the corner. I got my cymbal bag. Like I never put anything down. Like I'd just be standing in the corner, like waiting to go, because as soon as I got on stage, I need to set up. And as soon as I got off stage, I needed to pack up and then go to the next gig. And I remember somebody, like I walked in and they were like, oh shit, that dude with the white glasses is here. It's going to be a good set. And I was like, all right, like, okay. Yeah. They know, like, okay. All right. So I felt good about, you know, like those little bits of acknowledgement, because this brand, like whatever you want to call it, which was just a dumb decision at 4 a.m. I just got tired of thin black rim glasses. But, you know, like it started to become with this whole like, oh yeah, like that's the guy that's going to show up. He's going to, you know, like play everything to a T. He's going to twirl the sticks. Like it's going to be cool. Like it's going to be a fun show. So, and yeah, like I'm a fun guy. Yeah, what can I say? I don't always sound like it, but yeah, I'm fun.
The brand lives on. My dude, man. Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic to talk to you a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait for all the you know, all the random stuff that's going to come with some of the things that I've said today. But I'm glad that I shared them with you, and I feel honored, and it's a privilege to be here. So you're a buddy, and I always enjoy seeing you, and I can't wait until we get the best band in the world back together.
We're getting it back together, buddy. Yeah. You better believe it.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Let's do it again sometime. Peace. Absolutely.
The Morse Code Podcast is produced by Korby Lenker and Jared Hammond in East Nashville, Tennessee. Our executive producer is Randa Newman. You can find full videos for this and all previous episodes at morsecodepodcast.com.